Hi, candidates. So, like the last debate, we're going to start off with each one of you taking about a minute to introduce yourselves. And why don't we start with Leah down on the left, and we'll just work our way across.
Okay.
And one note, don't list off your entire resume unless you have to.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Leah Greenberg. I've been on both class council and BSG for 3 years now. And for those 3 years, I've been on the facilities subcommittee. And I think you've heard a lot about what they do, and so I was involved in a lot of that. Don't need to get into it. But pretty much, I think one of the benefits of being on the facilities committee specifically is that a lot of the things that you try to do, you see results pretty quickly. So unlike other subcommittees, things actually happen, and it gives you the sense that results are possible. And I wanted to bring kind of that action and enthusiasm to a different subcommittee. I feel like academic affairs is often overlooked because changes take a lot longer to come to fruition, and a lot of times people feel that it's kind of too much to actually make their ideas become realities. So I hope that you will consider me this weekend when you cast your vote for academic affairs.
Hi everyone, my name is Hongbei Lee. I'm a sophomore and I'm running for academic affairs vice president. And I've been on BSG for 2 years, the first year as the class representative for the class of 2014. And I was on the BSG affairs committee that year. And this year I've been on student organizations committee. So I think in terms of the BSG experience, I have a pretty well-rounded experience in terms of getting to know different committees and how they work. The reason why I'm running for academic affairs is because the issues that I want to work on or feel the most passionate about happen to be in the domain of this committee, and I hope that, and I certainly feel that my problems would not be, would also be problems of some other people, and I hope to improve the students' academic experience at voting. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chen Ying Liao, and I'm a first-year student. I haven't been in Bowdoin for a long time, but I'm currently involved in the spiritual club circle, and I lead a meditation breakfast every Wednesday. And during high school, I served on the student council team, and I plan several class events in conjunction with my other teammates. And also, during high school, I served as an assistant to the Director of International Student Affairs and help students whose first languages are not English to help their transition into their new language environment and academic environment better. And I found this experience really inspiring, and I enjoy doing so, and I wish that I can continue attending to students' needs during my 4 years at Bowdoin. Thank you.
Thank you all. So our first question for each of you guys to address is how would you help improve the mess, which is the distribution requirement system? Let's go back this way.
Okay. As a first-year student, the concerns about this distribution requirements I've heard from other upperclassmen is mainly that some courses, although they seem to satisfy the distribution requirements, but they don't necessarily fit into, like they're not accountable toward the requirements. For example, organic chemistry is one that I've heard. So one solution to that may be to propose to the professors that that the course might be changed, might be adjusted, and then so that they can count towards a distribution requirement. In this way, it not only can fulfill students' distribution requirement, but it also encourages students from taking a wide range of classes. And another idea that might be achievable is to have the independent studies accountable toward the distribution requirement as long as the students work in conjunction with the professors and then work on the syllabus to make sure that their independent studies fulfill the distribution requirement. And another thing, as international students, I've heard concerns from my fellow international students that because they are from a different background, that although when they're taking classes like American governments, that class don't count toward international perspective. But for international students, they do, in one way, it's a, they do fulfill the international perspective requirement. So one adjustment might be changed, one exception can be made if the international students talk with the professor and then propose their adjustment.
Well, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with Janine on most what she said, and I think I was just talking about this with my friends at dinner, and one of my friends has taken Bordeaux when she was a freshman, but however, that didn't count towards the distribution requirements, and then she had to take a sub-100 level bio class to fulfill that requirement, and so I definitely think the distribution requirement system is a little messy right now, and I think it is fairly important if I get elected to probably go through the courses with the dean or with the register office to see if some of the classes could potentially be counted towards certain distribution requirements. And yeah, I think at this point it is just important to go through the catalog with the office and to decide that. And I also think that if that is an issue that's going to take too long, probably right now we could use a petition system. If the students feel like one of the classes she or he has taken in the past could possibly count as distribution requirement, they could probably fill out a form or talk to the register office and tell them like what the person has learned in that class and how like the distribution requirements would kind of block their way of taking other important class for their majors or other interesting area that they wanted to explore. So I think during this examining period of the catalog, a petition form of some sort could replace the empty period.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the purpose of distribution requirements is supposed to be to encourage students to be a part of this global community, look outside yourselves, be part of a liberal arts education, explore things that you wouldn't necessarily take. And I think that the biggest issue with the system right now is that that's not really what it ends up doing. I think students feel restricted a lot of times by what courses they can take to fulfill these requirements. So rather than having a good experience in taking a class outside what they normally would be, it's negative either because they feel that there's no regulation, as everyone's been saying, in terms of what classes get this designation, and across different disciplines, I think that there isn't regulation in terms of what level classes get these. So for instance, I've heard a common complaint that maybe you can take a sub-100 level science class and get your INS, but to get an IP, you have to take a 200 level history class or something like that, where it's just not regulated across the board. So addressing that issue, I think that also perhaps extending or reinstating the system of allowing these classes to be taken credit fail would allow students to actually experience these outside of their comfort zone in a way that's more enjoyable and might encourage them to pursue other things rather than it being a stressor and perhaps turning them off completely from whatever area they were supposed to be exploring and supposed to be exposed to.
Thanks, candidates. So one more question that's going to be directed at all three of you again. What do you think is the most pressing academic issue facing Bowdoin, and how would you go about resolving it? The single most pressing issue. And we'll start with Leah and work our way back down.
I guess for me, I would say right now, I think that advising is a really big issue at Bowdoin. I think the fact that it's not really talked about and isn't really that present in students' lives is the issue in itself. I think that we have great professors and just great faculty and students who do have good relationships with their professors, but not necessarily in an advising forum. I think that both pre-major and upper class advising could be reformed. I think that this upcoming year might be a great time to do it with new pre-orientation times and settling in advising with the class of 2016. It might be a good time to revisit how pre-major advising is done, and also for upper class students, maybe looking into somehow connecting advisors within disciplines to some sort of career guidance for the future. So maybe having conversations within the CPC and departments to kind of coordinate that, because I think there's a wealth of knowledge and connections and resources within academic departments that goes unused for career guidance.
I'm very interested in engaging in a project that more efficiently brings back the students' feedback about their classes to the administration. I think I'm aware of the fact that at the end of the class, we do fill out a comment form, but I feel like our feedback to the college should not be limited in this one single form. And from my past experience, and also feel like the student doesn't, I do know that our comments get taken seriously, but I just wish that the students play a more important role in the tenuring process, because it is like not until like the end of the class that I know like one of our professors is leaving next semester, and I feel like if I had known that earlier, I would have talked to a dean, or like, because I sincerely think that she's a really good professor. So and a project that I would be interested in working on is probably setting like the office hour for deans who's responsible for or know more about the tenuring process, and can give the students an opportunity to talk to them about their classes and how they feel about professors, if they're having a really positive experience or a not so pleasant experience with certain classes. So I think, and also some people surrounding me suggest that they hope to find a way to express to their professor certain classes, that there's certain classes that I wanted to take, and it is possible for the department to offer, but there's just no systematic way for the students to express that idea to the administration or the department. So I think setting up a more efficient way of communication between the departments and the administration would greatly enhance the students' academic experience at Bowdoin. Thank you.
Thanks.
I agree with both Hong Bei and Lee's comments. And another issue that I've observed is liaising the language classes and it's the culture from that country. For instance, I've heard comments from my fellows that when they take a language class, it's purely grammar and listening and speaking, but the class very rarely touch onto the culture that lies behind this language. So I suggest that there can be more cooperation between the cultural classes and the language classes themselves. In this way, it enriches not only the liberal arts education experience, but also it encourages students to actively to learn the language rather than in a passive way. And also I've observed that for some of the language classes, especially the intermediate level, the levels of the students' language abilities are vary significantly. So if there's a way to accommodate these students accordingly, then in this way it avoids discouraging the students to take that language class and make their experience better. So, thank you.
Thanks. So this point I'd like to ask just a short question, individual for each of you. So Cheng-Yi, here's your first one. I'm wondering, one of the big challenges for the head of the Academic Affairs Committee has been to get professors and the administration on board with proposals. In the past 4 years, we've had people taking really good initiative to either reform distribution requirements or to work, I believe, on Thanksgiving break and to work with the credit defail issues. And many times, really thoughtful BSG proposals have either been shot down or have been modified past recognition by the faculty. And so what I'm wondering is, as a member of BSG, how would you kind of work to get the faculty behind your proposals?
So
how would you personally work to get the faculty to support your proposals?
Okay. I've been enjoying working with professors and talking to them. So I guess one way to make them, to include them into this proposal process is to first do a survey across the student body and then get enough support, and then with that support we talk with the professors and then try to work in conjunction and move up to the administration level. So,
thank you. And Hongbei, one of the things that you mentioned was course reviews. And certainly the BSG course review website has been popular to varying extents in the past couple of years. But what I'm wondering is, can you imagine ways to make it more useful, whether either getting more students to participate or possibly modifying the end of the semester review cards such that they're actually inputted into the student system? Those are possibilities that have been suggested by various students. Is that something that you possibly want to work toward, or do you have other ideas about helping improve the way that students can evaluate the potential workload of their courses and their professors' teaching ability?
Thank you for the question. I think it's just something I've been thinking about because I sometimes go on to the Bowdoin course review and I find it helpful in terms of evaluating the professor in a more objective way, and I think it would, and sometimes I think it tends to get overlooked by the students because once they're done with this class, they're done with this class. And I guess what the student activity office has been doing is to giving gift cards for students who like their Facebook page. And I think using awards as a thing for students to write more comments about their classes at the end of their school year is potentially a great way to raise awareness about the BSG course review. So I think it's about giving students more incentive to write on the website, and I think maybe we could work with professors and towards the end of the class they could announce something and be like, hey guys, want to write on this board about your thoughts. So.
Thank you. And Leah, one, I'd say, disadvantage almost of going to Bowdoin is that when your record is evaluated alongside the records of those students at peer schools, oftentimes Bowdoin students don't always appear to be doing as well academically compared to their intra-school peer group, because the cutoffs for Latin honors in the Dean's List are locked in at the top 20% of the class at Bowdoin, while at schools like Amherst and Colby and Middlebury, there are either cutoffs that are top 30% or top 25% of the class, or there's hard cutoffs, like if you're above the 3.3 or something, I believe at Middlebury, you're on the Dean's List. And so in other words, this can be a pretty big disadvantage for both students when their resumes are being screened by employers and some less intelligent grad school admissions officers. So what I'm wondering is, is this an issue that concerns you? And if so, what could be done about it, if anything?
I think there are two parts to the way Bowdoin does things that concerns me. First of all, in naming our Dean's List, Sarah and James Bowdoin Scholar, I think that a lot of people reading resumes don't know what that means. So I think it's important that if students are using that to distinguish themselves, that they're also somehow designating what it means. So top 20% of the class. cetera. I think that is a disadvantage. I think that it's nice for the Bowdoin community to call it that, but I do think that in comparison to other schools, seeing Dean's List compared to St. James Bowdoin Scholar puts Bowdoin students at an advantage. So I think that's something to look into. I also think that the way that we've discussed this in BSG in the past, the way that this designation works for students who go abroad is also troublesome. So for students who go abroad, there's no way that for your junior, if you go abroad junior, there's no way that you can get this designation regardless of what your GPA is. And I think that also puts students in a disadvantage, whereas at some peer schools, when it's just a solid GPA cutoff, you're still giving this designation for the semester. So whether revisiting giving this on a semesterly basis in order to avoid that and having these gaps in academic performance, which aren't necessarily actual gaps, and also revisiting how people are portraying this designation to those who aren't familiar with the way Bowdoin does things, I think are very important to look into.
So then, do you think that it's good that we have this 20% cutoff because it allows students who really actually are outstanding scholars to distinguish themselves, or is it bad because it hurts the other students who might just be just below them in terms of grade point average or other measures of academic achievement?
I support the 20% cutoff. I think it does a lot to distinguish students who are in the top 20%, and I think that on a resume, for instance, you are also putting your actual GPA. So for schools who are comparing to some school where there's a 3.3 cutoff, 3.5 cutoff, they can compare directly GPA to GPA and understand that if students are presenting this distinction correctly, that it should look better rather than worse.
Thanks. Thanks, candidates. That's it.